So, English in Bangladesh can be divided into three phases of the political history of the nation, reflecting the changing role and status of English. The origin of English in the Indian subcontinent is linked to British colonial rule in 1757 to 1947. The first encounters between the Indians and the British date from the 1630s when English trading factories were set up in Bengal. So initially, English was a language of trade between English factors and local go-betweens. So that's according to Zayman in 2003. So with no commercial of institutional opportunities for its learning. Although English was gaining ground in the colonized territory, the East India Company gave little encouragement to educational development in the late 18th and early 19th century. However, the company became involved in Indian education with the Character Act of 1813, which proclaimed to set aside money for education of Indians. So when the British left in 1947, creating the new nations of India and Pakistan, there was an inevitable gulf between New English using elites and the improvised masses in both countries. Thus, according to Reina, 1994. So the second phase is during the Pakistan era on 1947 to 1971, constructing a new national language or Urdu to unite linguistically, culturally, and geographically divided East and West Pakistan called for significant political investment. The question of English apparently remained in the background to this complex political process. Nevertheless, English remained a new status in the Federation of Pakistan, serving as a neutral political tool for communication between the two wings of Pakistan. The dominance of English, inherited from colonial rule, continued in education, which also maintained social divisions along linguistic lines. In the new nation, English became a de facto foreign language with a negligible role in internal communication in already monolingual country. As a symbol of national identity, Bangla replaced English in all important domains, including higher education, in the next few years. However, within a decade or so, English came under policy favor, arguably owing to the influence of globalization and privatization of education. So, next, let's talk about the linguistic ecology of Bangladesh today. In the second decade of the 21st century, English finds itself in a complex linguistic ecology and sociopolitical imaginary in Bangladesh. As elsewhere in the world, English is an object of social desire because of a strong popular faith in what the language can offer. However, Bangla is dominant in many areas of society. While the public sector may dispense with English, the booming private sector is increasingly relying on the global language. For instance, public sector seems to have left the national languages behind in moving forward in a neoliberal environment. That's according to Hamid and Baldog on 2014. Current status of English in Bangladesh is not a simple task. This is mainly due to the absence of what is called status planning for English. There is no policy articulation about English that can be applied to the whole society. The National Education Policy, or the Ministry of Education 2010, includes chapter on all conceivable forms of education, including adult and non-formal education, women's education, religions and moral education, physical education, and legal education. But each chapter is dedicated to the languages of language education. The status of Bangla is determined unambiguously by policy, which may help understand the place of English. For example, the Bangla Language Introduction Act of 1987 obliges courts, government offices, semi-government, and autonomous institutions, except in foreign relations, to use Bangla. So, however, the law has not been fully implemented for more than 2 decades. Consequently, on February 17, 2014, Bangladesh Supreme Court issued a rule to the government about the implementation of the act. Functions of English in Bangladesh. So the first is the education. Education is a key domain where English has an overarching presence, both as a language for learning and as a language in which students are expected to develop functional proficiency. So according to Hamid and Bulldog 2008, Rahman 2015, Hamid and Erling 2016, that school English achievement is yet to have a significant impact on society. The curricular status of English varies across the streams of education. Madrasa education is another major stream which caters for 17% of the student population. There are multiple systems of madrasas. That's according to Bano 2014. And only the stream called Aliyah Madrasa is funded and managed by government. English has a significant presence in Qumi Madrasa, another stream of madrasa education in the country. English is more dominant in private English medium education, which caters for a little less than 2% of the student population. That's according to Hamid and Jehan 2015. It is both the language of instruction and the medium of communication in these schools. Tertiary education shows a clear linguistic divide between the public and the private sector, while the national education policy suggests the use of both Bangla and English as the medium of introduction for public sector higher education, or the Ministry of Education 2010, where English is the only language for teaching and learning in private universities. The domain of employment does not allow for an easy or reliable assessment of the role of English. According to Erling and Cawthon 2019, so while jobs in certain sectors may require high levels of English proficiency and other communication skills, Bangla may suffice in many others. In general, English plays a more dominant role in the private sector than in the public sector. Within the formal education, ready-made garment or RMG, information technology or IT, and banking sectors demand functional English proficiency from employees. English in workplaces, there is a strong social perception that job seekers with proficiency in English have an edge over others. That's according to Erling 2013. The English employment nexus was established during the British colonial period and has strengthened in a neoliberal world where English education has to be seen through the prism of economic value and capital. So while youth unemployment is a critical issue in Bangladesh, as in many other countries, it is also true that often employers fail to recruit people because they do not have adequate skills, including English proficiency. The role of English in media and entertainment is modest, as this sector uses mainly Bangla to cater to its domestic audience as well as the Bangladesh diaspora around the globe. Hindi also has a significant role in entertainment, as Hindi music is quite common in public places. Information in Bangladesh is communicated mainly through Bangla, although a significant role of English is understandable for cooling and processing news from overseas media outlets for local consumptions. So as of 2018, there are 1,242 national and regional daily newspapers published in the country. 85 of them are in English, while 70 English dials are published from the capital city and 15 from the rest of the country. There are over 40 television channels, including the sole state-run Bangladesh Television or BTV. The private television channels have even more limited space for English in their programs. Although there are no specific policies for English, the sector may be subject to the Bangla Introduction Act 1987 and the High Court orders previously mentioned which restrict the use of English. Bangla is the language of politics and political expression in Bangladesh. Using a language other than Bangla in this field can be considered politically incorrect with serious repercussions. Although the major political parties, including the Bangladesh Awami League or BAL, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party or BNP, the Bangladesh Jatiya Party or BJP, and the Bangladesh Jamati Islami or BGI, maintain their official websites in English and Bangla. Political programs and activities of each party are conducted exclusively in the latter. All major political parties try influence popular opinions by direct contact with people through political meetings and campaigns, protests, rallies, and other forms of mass gatherings where Bangla is used as the only language of communication. Similarly, in what are known as talk shows, discussion of politics and political affairs by academics and public intellectuals and political commentators on all television channels is carried out in Bangla. However, as previously noted, there are no specific policies for English to guide politics and political discourse in the country. English probably has the strongest presence in non-government organization or NGO Typically, Ngos work in the areas of poverty television, health, sanitation, microfinance, education, women's empowerment, human rights, environment, and minority issues. So, since many of the Ngos have to communicate with global development partners for funding and other needs, English is a default option for international communication. All major NGOs have their websites in English, although there has been little research on language use in most. Anecdotal evidence suggests that the majority of the written communication is mainly in English. Although creative writing in English in the region dates back to the early 19th century, Bangladesh writing in English or BWE has yet to receive notable recognition. BWE in this respect lags behind its Indian, Pakistan, and Sri Lankan counterparts, which claim literary history books and have received considerable critical attention. In post independence Bangladesh, even through writers including Razia Khan Amin 1936 to 2011 and Kaiser Haq 1951 wrote during the 1980s, BWO remained somewhat intricate. However, since the 90s, the mushrooming of English medium schools and the increase in English dailies has contributed to its growing vibrancy. More recently, the Hay Festival of Literature and Arts in Dhaka attracts crowds of promising literature and has apparently enthused Bangladesh authors writing in English. There are others who write in Bangla and then translate into English. So, email communication in Bangladesh is characterized by the use of English. However, in the public sector, email is not the official form of communication, even though it probably constitutes the dominant form of communication in the private sector. Based on the extent, nature, type, and purpose of English use in the garments industry, thus according to Roshi 2014, promises the concept of garment speak, which accommodates all varieties of Englishes, including received standard or RS, local, cruise, and pigeons. Mobile phone based short message service or SMS constitutes other area of significant English use in Bangladesh as elsewhere in South Asia. So that's according to Mendes and Ramboquela 2010. While emails are written mainly in English, SMS mixes Bangla and English and is often written in the Romanized script. Some government departments have started communicating notices and other information to their subscribers using SMS. Ahmed and colleague 2010 examined the use of SMS by 300 university students in Dhaka. They found various features of language use, such as code mixing and code switching, local innovation, abbreviation, and rule breaking. Similarly, Facebook posts and messages of Bangladeshis reflect creative and agentic use of English. That's according to Sultana 2014. Although this domain, like email and SMS, is yet to be explored from a WE perspective. As the following SMS text illustrate, established businesses in Bangladesh blend English and Bangla to varying degrees to inform existing customers about products and services. So example refers to New Year greetings and uses only English in all caps, probably to project a global identity of the business. Interestingly, New Year's greetings have also accommodated Islam, or Bangladesh being a Muslim majority country, and the local practice of Islamic greetings. Example number two is also written entirely in English, probably to project a globalized identity of Aerong, the largest handcraft industry in Bangladesh, popular with tourists, foreigners, expatriate Bangladeshis, and the wealthier classes. This is probably to accommodate customers from different socio-economic and English proficiency backgrounds. In number three, Bangla words including Proti, Korle, and Paben came together with recharge. The last sentence is entirely in Bangla, which translates into as many times as you wish. And number four, Bangla and Tertian E are added to English words recharge and number. Notably, although Bangla has its own script, these examples have translate, translated Bangla words and expressions using Roman script. This may due to the inconvenience in switching between two completely different writing systems in quick messaging. Moreover, composing in Bangla is difficult and time consuming because of the complexity of the Bangla alphabet and the frequent use of joint letters.